Research reveals younger Australians want a fairer and more equal tax system where corporates and the wealthy are paying their share. Joining me now is Redbridge Group Director Simon Welsh, who's spoken to Gen Xers and older millennials about the tax reform they'd like to see. So what's that age group, Simon?
Yeah, thanks, Laura. So we're talking people sort of, I would roughly sort of draw the line around sort of 35 through to 55, and particularly sort of middle and upper middle income folk within that band. So that's a sizable voting block that we're talking about there. It's an influential voting block. It exists in all the marginals in big numbers. And what they're saying to us is there's been this steady raising of tax and tax reform in this cohort, probably over about a year now. We've been watching it sort of go from this sort of niche thing to become forefront in discussions. And it's not about people wanting a tax cut themselves, although I'm sure that would be nice right now. It's about rebalancing this system, that they're looking at a system that too heavily favours corporates and the super rich. And it's about wanting to have the burden shared a bit more, because I feel like middle Australia, folk like them are really carrying the burden.
Sorry, Simon. What do they class as super rich? Because I'm asking this in the context of the debate around stage 3 tax cuts in particular.
Yeah, the stage 3 tax cuts in this cohort do not go down well, and they have not gone down well ever since they were first floated. Whether they count that as super rich, because I think that kicks in around 200,000. I think what they're talking about is higher than that, but certainly the stage 3 tax cuts do not go down well amongst this cohort anyway. It sort of gets tangled up in this discussion as well. When they say super rich, I think they're talking about, the millionaires and the billionaires, on our TV screen sort of thing. And it's this sense that, the too much burden being carried by middle Australia and wanting to see that rebalanced. I think what I think is interesting in this discussion is that it kind of mirrors what we were seeing around housing affordability, 3 or 4 years ago. First of all, in that it's a steadily growing sort of voice on this issue. And the second is that it sort of has a significance beyond itself. So for housing, housing affordability isn't just about the asset. It's about all the things that asset unlocks, whether that's financial stability, security, having a sense of connection to a community. Housing is really important beyond itself. This issue is really important beyond itself because it's not just about the fairness of the system. What they see in this is they link it to the diminishment of public services. This is the reason we can't have nice things. This is the reason we can't have properly funded education for our kids. This is the reason we can't have properly funded hospitals, is because we've got this imbalance in the tax system where the biggest and the richest aren't really paying their fair share. So I think it's a fascinating issue to watch. I reckon if it follows the trend of housing that it has so far, and all the ingredients are there, that, in another 2 or 3 years' time, we could be talking about tax in the same way that we're talking about housing and the housing crisis right now. Yeah,
right. I think it's extraordinary, really, that this is coming through in the groups, and I wonder what your feeling is on this, because it seems like the political tactics are working rather than the facts, because stage 3 tax cuts kick in for those on $45,000 a year. So everyone on $45,000 to $200,000 a year will be paying 30 cents in the dollar. I think that a lot of people in Sydney in particular at the moment, or any capital city trying to buy a home, and earning in that bracket would not class themselves as rich, right?
Yeah. There's certainly, in this cohort, there's certainly a perception that stage 3 equals, the big benefit for the big end of town. So certainly in that sense, that political messaging is winning. The interesting thing is, where's that political messaging coming from? Because Labor government's supporting it, the Liberal government's supporting it. So what it speaks to, and this is another really interesting aspect of this tax discussion, is it speaks to those more minor, if I can call them that for the moment, minor political voices out there, whether it's the minor parties, independents, or whoever it is that are talking up that aspect of it. Because this whole tax thing gets conflated with this sense of a political system, particularly the two major parties, a political system that's beholden to powerful corporate rich interests. So there's this real growing flavour of that in these sort of cohorts that we're talking about, whether it's around tax, whether it's around climate, whether it's around housing. The reason we can't get housing reform is because, we hear this all the time, because all the politicians own 2 or 3 houses. So it really speaks to the cut through that those minor parties, independents, those otherwise minor political voices are having around these sorts of issues. And therein lays the trap for the major parties, that if things aren't done in this space, all they're doing is giving oxygen to that sort of those political challenges that, for Labor on their left flank with the Greens, and for Liberals on their left flank with Teal independents and those sorts of things.
Yeah, fascinating as always, Simon. Great to talk to you.
Thanks, Laura.